to record. Okay, so you have a template, and this is from the previous semester. You can go to your lab section 212, and under this, under the course content, you have my name. Click on that, and here you have templates. So here I have for few of the labs. So this is assignment 8. Click on that. So there will be a PDF file which I have uploaded. So you can also refer to this. Okay, so here this includes 2 questions from each part 1 and part 2. So this will tell you how to do. Okay, now for the sections other than 212, if you need this document, then just email me, I can send you. Okay. Now, coming back to your lab manual, so what we have to do is test for proportions. We need to find the p-value. Now, this you did in your lecture section also as well, I assume. So, okay, let's open the JMP and we will continue. You do not have to do what I'm doing right now. This is because I do not have the subset file, so I'm just creating one. You don't have to do this if you have one. Okay, so open your subset file. Okay, now we will be doing, I will be doing one questions from each part, and I will let you do the other questions. Okay, now first part is to test for proportion, and in this first question is to test that the proportion of Hispanics is less than 50%. We need to find out whether we need to accept this H0, I mean the null hypothesis, or whether to reject the null hypothesis. Okay, and that depends on the p-value. So all you have to do is to find out the p-value. Now we will go to the subset. This is about Hispanics, that is race. So I have to click on race because this includes Hispanics and the question is about Hispanics. Okay, now go to calls, C-O-L-S. You can find this in the toolbar on the above. Click on race and click on calls, C-O-L-S. Okay, now what does this do? This will recode the entire column. So now why should I do this? Because as you can see in this column, in the race column, there are more than one race: Hispanics, W, B, and O, others, O as others, right? Now that we have these many, all I want is to find out the proportion for Hispanics. If I have more than more than one race, it's hard to find, and I do not get the correct calculation. So what I have to do is group them, right? Now Hispanics will be in one group, while WBO will be in one group, which can be called as non-Hispanics. Okay, now I need to group them, so I call that as recode. To do that, you have to click on calls and click on recode. Click on calls and recode. Okay, now here you can see you have old values, new values. Now this count is nothing but the number of B present in that column. Okay, you don't have to worry about the first column. Now second column says this is B, H, O, W. Now all I want is I will keep this H as it is because that's the question, and I will group B, O, W into one group. So how can I do that? Just go to the new values and type it as NH. Okay, and you have to do this for O and W, right? So O will come here, NH, and also for W it is NH. Okay, that's it. Now if you can see, you have new values and you have only two groups, that is N and H. N and NH and H. Okay, so now this is correct. So we will just hit on recode, click on recode. You will get another new column. So here you can see that there are only two race, Hispanics and non-Hispanics. Now it is very easy to find out the or test for proportion. Okay. So after doing this, do you want me to repeat the steps? Okay. Now after doing this, all you have to do is find out the p-value. To do that, you have to plot the histogram. So you all know how to do that. Go to Analyze and Distribution. Analyze and Distribution. Okay. Now you have to choose race 2, the new column which you created after recoding. So you place this in the Y column. Place race 2 in the Y column and click on OK. After this, you are going to make this as horizontal layout. So for that, you have to click on the red arrow, display option, horizontal layout. Okay. Once after doing this, you need to test the probability. You have the option here. You just have to click on the red arrow, and here you have test probability. Test probabilities, click on that. Okay, and you will have two empty fields here under hypothesis probability. So here I have, if you come back to the lab manual, now this says you are going to test the claim for Hispanics and it has to be less than 50%. So you have a probability for Hispanics, right? So go back to the table here, blank space. Now I have the value for H. I do not have for NH. So I will just be filling this blank, okay, as 0.5. Why 0.5? Because it is 50%. You cannot enter 50% in the GMP. So you will convert that into decimal. 50 by 100 will give you 0.5. Okay. Now after filling the value in the blank space, you will come down here. You are going to select an alternative hypothesis. So you know that in hypothesis we have two types, null hypothesis and alternative hypothesis, right? Now alternative hypothesis, you are going to choose from these three. It has to be not equal, greater, or less than, right? Now if you come back to the question, it says less than, so it is very easy to choose. It has to be less than, right? So click on this, probability less than hypothesis value, and then done. Okay. Now after doing this, you have your p-value here. Okay. Now that you got the p-value, all you have to do is copy the whole thing, copy the entire thing here. Okay, and create a Word file. paste the graph first, and I will tell you what to enter after this. Okay, so you need to enter your name as usual. Your section is 212. Name and date. And this is assignment 8. So once you complete your report, come back to the lab manual. Here, you need to answer in this way. So you need to write your null and alternative hypothesis first. Now, you know that these are the steps to complete your hypothesis testing. So this is what you did in your lecture class, right? If you don't remember, just okay. So if you don't remember, now you can go through the steps here. So you are going to state null and alternative hypothesis first, and then you can just tell what type of test it is depending on less than or greater than symbol. And then you are going to find the critical value. Now you don't have to do these two because you have the p-value already, right? Now I know the p-value. I'm going to compare this p-value with alpha. If it is less than, I will say reject H naught. If not, I can say fail to reject, right? And this becomes my initial conclusion, or also called as statistical conclusion. Okay, and step 6 is to make your final conclusion. Now in your lab, we call that as plain English conclusion, or in lecture class we call that as final conclusion. Okay, now this is what we are going to do again in this lab. Fine. So coming back to your lab manual, so it says you need to write your null and alternative hypothesis first. Compute, we did that. Show your p-value. You need to write or mention your p-value, and then you're going to state your statistical conclusion, and then you're going to give the plain English conclusion. Okay, and after that, the final step is to check for the validity of every test. So how can you do that? If you're testing for a proportion, then you need to verify your n and p. N as in the sample size, p as the probability. Okay, Both will be there in your histogram plot, and you can check whether it is greater than or equal to 5. We did this in our lab 7, right? Now we used to check the count number, whether it is greater than or equal to 5. So you're going to repeat the same thing. Now, if you're doing for or testing for mean, you have to verify the sample size. So if it is greater than 30, you will say the test is valid. If not, you say the test is not valid because it is less than 30, right? Very simple. Now, we'll come back to the report, and first is writing null and alternative hypothesis. So we will write the null hypothesis that is represented by H naught is equal to, this is proportion, so equal to 0.5 or 50%, and then I write my alternate hypothesis H1, we call that as H1 or even HA. P is equal to, sorry, P is less than 0.5. Done. So we did the first thing, but including this, I will write here it as claim because that's the claim given in the problem, and I have to mention which type of test it is. Now, to check which type of test it is, now going back to your lecture notes, now if your claim is less than, if it is less than, then it is a left tail test. Okay, we call that as left tail test. This is not mandatory to do in your lab manual, but it's better if you know. Now this is less than, and if it is less than, we call it as left tail. If it is greater than, we call that as right tail. If it is not equal to, we call that as two-tailed. Okay. Now we have in our report as less than, so we call that as left tailed test. Okay, now that we did write our null and alternative hypothesis, next is to compute and show p-values, and this is where you are going to paste your plot. Okay, and you can mention it as p-value that is equal to 0.9322. Okay, how did I get this? It's in your plot on the end, bottom here. Okay, so here we have p-value. So here we have p-value, and this is what you will be writing in your report. Okay. Okay. Now next is to write the alpha. Alpha value is, going back to your lab manual, alpha value will be 0.05 given in your lab manual. So I'll be writing that here again. Alpha is 0.05. Now your work is to find out the initial or statistical conclusion, p-value and alpha. You're going to compare p-value and alpha. So p is 0.9 whereas alpha is 0.05. So p-value is greater than alpha. So your conclusion is fail to reject H naught. if you want to write like this, I mean like a subscript, so all you have to do is, if you want to write, now you will write H, just click on press Control plus at one time, and you will get a down bar, and there you can type it as 0. If not, that's okay. You can just write it as H with not. That's also fine. Okay. Now that we did statistical conclusion, and then we need to write the plain English, which is your final conclusion. Okay. So now that you know you are going to your conclusion is fail to reject H naught. Now I have a small table here. This will help you to make your final conclusion. This is not so important. You can write your final conclusion on your own, but this will help you to do that. Okay. Now that we have failed to reject H naught and our claim is H1, how did I know that? It's here. So H1 is alternative hypothesis. Now this is my claim. So what do I mean by that is, in your question, if they say it is less than 50%, and if your question and your alternative hypothesis has a same symbol, then we say this is the claim. Okay. If not, for example, let's say it is equal. Okay. If it is equal to 50%, then your question and your alternative hypothesis, this becomes not equal, right? So your question and your alternative hypothesis is not same. So this time, this is not my claim, but your null hypothesis will be the claim. Okay. Now, why am I telling you this? Because this will help you to make your final conclusion. Okay. Now, coming back to this small table here, now we know that our statistical conclusion is fail to reject H naught, and we are going to claim H1, right? So just write the solution which is corresponding to that. That will be this: insufficient evidence support the claim. Okay. Now that I know this is what my final conclusion is, you are going to write that in English. So there is not enough evidence, or you can say insufficient evidence, not enough evidence to support the claim. And what's the claim? Support the claim that the proportion for Hispanics is less than 50%. So there is not enough evidence to prove this claim. Okay, so that's your plain English conclusion. Okay. If you are done with this, and next step is to check for the validity of your test. So to do that, you just have to check the count number here. It has to be greater than 5. Okay. You have to concentrate only on H, Hispanic. Fine. So now that I have count as 73, if you have more than 5, you will be just saying, making your conclusion like this. NP is greater than 5, so the test is valid. Okay. So this is what you have to do. If you're done with question number 1, you can go ahead and do question number 2 of part 1. Okay, so you need to group if you're doing first problem. Are you done with the first problem? Okay, so click on raise here. So go to calls, COLS on the toolbar. Yes, there. And you're going to recode. Click on recode, bottom, down, still. Yes, there. Okay. Now you are going to group. So leave H as H and remaining BOW, rename it as NH. Click on B. That's okay. So rename it as NH. Backspace, NH. That's it. So do the same thing for O and B. It's above. There. Just click in the empty space. Yeah, okay. Now that you are done with that, you're going to click on recode. So you get a new column raised to. So you will be working on this. So click on that, go to analyze distribution. Yeah, Y column. Okay. Horizontal layout. Not there. Now go to the same arrow. Test probability. Now in the H, you have a blank space. There you're going to enter it as 0.5. And then you're going to choose the alternative hypothesis. So since your question says it is less than, you will choose the third option. Yeah, done. So your p-value is so this is your p-value. Yes, that's what you're going to write in your report. Okay, you're going to copy the whole thing. Yes. Okay, it's fine. So you'll be repeating this for question number 2 and question number 3. Okay, so I'll just place 2 more tabs here so that it will help you. These are the steps you have to follow to complete your question number 2, and just for your reference, to make a final conclusion, you can refer to this table also. So you'll recode and then you will get education level 2, and this is for part 1, option C, the question C. So you will be doing a histogram here, Y column, click on OK, and all you have to do is click on test probability. You will get this, right? Now, yes. And according to your question, you have a value for bachelor's degree, and that is 0.2. So you will enter here as 0.2, and your alternative hypothesis, it says not equal to. It is not equal to, and you will choose not equal to here. Did you do this correct?
Yes, I put not equal to and then the 0.2.
Okay,
Repeat.
good. And you just click on done. And do you see this?
Yes, that's what I'm seeing.
For those who have completed part 1C, do you see the p-value or do you see like this? You see that, right? Okay. You see the p-value, right? Yeah. Okay. That's what. Okay. So if you are seeing like this, then take Pearson value and just choose this p-value here. Okay. The value which you see here is the p-value, but the name given might confuse you. But if you just move your cursor to the value, it says it is a p-value. Okay.
To pick the Pearson one, right? Because mine are
Yes.
2 different numbers. Okay.
It doesn't
Thank you.
matter. It's the same, but we usually pick Pearson. Okay. So just to go through now. So in part 1, you have 3 questions. All you have to do is test for proportion, finding out the p-value. So for part 1, you have to recode, and you know how to do that. So after that, you will find out the p-value, and coming to your report, you will write your null hypothesis. Your null hypothesis will always have this equal to symbol. Okay, null hypothesis will always have the equal to symbol. Okay, and how did I get the 0.5? It depends on your question. It says 50%, so I write 0.5, 50 by 100. Now you can also write it as 50%, that will not change anything. Now coming to the alternative hypothesis. Now how can I write the symbol here? Again, it depends on the equation. It says less than, so I say less than here. Okay. Now remember, null and alternative hypothesis will always have the same value, but the symbol will be different. Okay. Always null hypothesis will be having this equal to symbol. Alternative hypothesis will have less than, greater than, or not equal to symbol. Alternative hypothesis will never have the equal to symbol. Okay, keep this in mind. And now this symbol will depend on your question. If the question says less than, you will write it as less than. If it is saying greater than, you will write it as greater than. Not equal to, not equal to. Okay, very simple. And then you are going to paste the histogram whichever you have done. You have your p-value right here in the figure. You will mention the same value here. Okay, and you know your alpha, that is 0.05. How do I know that? In your lab manual, you have significance level alpha equal to 0.05. So I get the value from there. Now your next thing is doing or concluding the statistical conclusion. So here you will be comparing p-value with alpha. Now remember, when I say p-value, you are going to concentrate only on this, because you might get confused that this p and this p might be same, but it is not. Okay, because this is your proportion value. P-value is nothing but your area. Okay, p-value and alpha is called as area. If you remember your previous chapters, p-value and alpha is nothing but the area. Now this alpha is like a critical value. So alpha depends on the critical value. P-value depends on, any guess? P-value depends on, or it is related to? Test statistic. Okay, so whichever area you find using the test statistic formula, that area is called as p-value. Okay, and if you use critical value formulas to find the area, that is called as alpha. Fine. Now we always use this p-value to compare or make the decisions. Okay. Okay. Now this is more like comparing two areas, like comparing the test statistic and critical value. Fine. Now after you compare, you will make your decision based on the sign here. Now this sign depends on the value. If it is less than, you will say less than or greater than. This doesn't have any connection with the question. Okay, you don't have to think like if this is less than, then this will always be greater than. No, it always depends on the question. Fine. Now you will never get equal to symbol here or not equal to symbol there. Okay, you will either have a greater than or less than. Fine. Now after making a statistical conclusion, you will make your plain English conclusion. Now this depends on you. Fine. Now after that, you are going to test for do the validity of test. Now if you are doing for part 1, this is only for part 1, you will be comparing the count. Now how do I get the count? Now if you see your histogram, here you have count. Under the frequency tab, you have count. So if your count is greater than 5, you can easily say the test is valid. Okay, so that's what we did for question number 1. Now for question number 2, you do not have to recode because you have only 2 options there, yes or no. Fine. So after that, and for question number C, you have to recode because I guess you have 4 options. You just need only 2 groups. Okay, now you will have this not equal to symbol, so you will get 2 p-values, Pearson and likelihood ratio. Now if you see, both will have a similar value, but we usually use Pearson, so choose the value which is there in the Pearson column or the row. So that's about your part 1. Now coming back to your part 2. Part 2 is testing for mean. This third question. Now part 2, this is part 2, and here you have first question. Your first question will be, test the claim that the mean salary is more than $30,000. Okay, so we are going to do hypothesis testing for mean. Okay, so how can we do that? Go back to your subset. Okay, so this is about salary. Now you have two things here. This is about salary and it is only on males, right? Salary and male. So you have two variables. Now, since you have two variables, you will go to analyze distribution. You don't have to recode here. Okay. Now you have two variables. So I will keep the salary in the Y column. And it is related to sex also, right? So I will keep this in the by column. Okay. Now click on OK. Then you can just change your layout horizontal. You will be getting two histograms for each question. Horizontal layout. Okay. Now you will not have the option called as test probability because we are going to do for test mean. So in the arrow mark, you have test mean option. Okay, test mean option, you can choose that. Now they are asking us to specify a value. Now how do I get this value? Go back to your lab manual. In your question, you have a mean value as $30,000. You will be entering the same thing, 30,000. No change in the value. Okay, I will enter it as 30,000. Fine. Now, enter true standard deviation. We do not have standard deviation information, right? We do not have any information about that. Now, I don't mind if it does a z-test or a t-test. You must know the difference. Z-test is done when you know the standard deviation. T-test is done when you do not know the standard deviation, and that is called t-distribution. Okay? There are two distributions. Fine. Now that I have a hypothesized mean, you do not have to enter anything in the second blank because we do not have any information about that. Okay. Now just click on OK. You will have three probability p-values. Probability or three p-values. Okay. Done. Now you will be doing the same thing for the next histogram. Just click on the red arrow, test mean. Red arrow, test mean. Your hypothesized mean will be same thing, 30,000. Click on OK. Actually, you do not have to care about the first one because you are just testing for salary and meal. So I just need only this. You can concentrate only on one thing. Fine. Okay. So now you're going to paste, you're just going to copy this part because your question says salary and it is related to males. So you are going to copy only the graph which is related to male. Now just Control C and leave some gap and just paste it here in your Word file. You can minimize this. Okay, now here also you will be writing your null hypothesis. I will just write it as H naught equal to 30,000 and your H1 H1 will be, what symbol should I write here? Greater than, because it is more than, right? The question says it is more than, so my symbol here will be greater than. Greater than 30,000. Okay, that's your null and alternative hypothesis. I'm done here, and next is to write a p-value. So here, when it comes to p-value, you can see there are 3 values here, right? You have 3 values. Now, how do I choose this? Again, it depends on your question. So your question says it is more than meaning it is greater than. So you come back here and choose the probability which is greater than t. Okay, probability greater than t. So that's your 0.0117. 0.0117. Okay, that is what you're going to write here. For me, it is 0.0117. Oh, for you, it can be different. Alpha will be 0.05 given in your problem. Now you are going to make a statistical conclusion like you did for part 1. Compare p-value with alpha. So your p-value is less than alpha here. So your conclusion will be reject H naught. Okay. Now after you do this, next is plain English conclusion. Just going back to the chapter here. Now you're going to reject H naught and your claim is H1. So you have sufficient evidence to support the claim. So your conclusion will be like this. There is enough evidence to support the claim. That the mean salary for males is more than $30,000. That's it. Yes, that's okay. So that means your p-value is greater than alpha. That's fine. Okay, so once you are done with question number 1, you just have to concentrate on question number 2. So your question number says test claim for BMI. Now you are going to plot histogram for BMI and sex. And for option C, it will be between weight and sex. Okay. Now all these are depending on or related to males. So you can plot only one histogram. Okay. You will get 2, but you can just do a test mean for one plot. Fine. Okay, yes. Thank you. Thank you for reminding me. Okay, so next is validity of test. So to check the validity, you need to concentrate on capital N in your summary statistics. Okay, in the histogram, you have N value here, right? Now, in my case, N value is 55, which is definitely greater than 30. So I say the test is valid. Okay. So that's how you make the conclusion. Okay, so once you are done with this, if you are done with part 1 and part 2, and I guess that's it. So that will end your lab 8. Okay, so here for this lab, you do not have to write any report or you do not have to summarize anything. So all you have to do is complete part 1 and part 2. Okay, and also do the verification for validity of every test. So that's the only thing you'll be doing in lab 8. Okay, that will be the end of chapter 8.